Welcome to Put It to the Test, the podcast taking the best evidence for positive lifestyle change and testing it real time, week by week. My name is Cameron Suter, here with my father, Derek Suter, and together our hope is to encourage and inspire you on your journey to lifelong health.
There are endless approaches to health. Finding the best path forward can feel overwhelming, I know. Instead of wading through the sea of restrictive diets and exercise programs, let's try something different. What if there is a way to not only lose weight, but to gain a lifestyle that allows for sustained, ongoing, and ever-increasing well-being? I'm going to put it to the test. This podcast chronicles my own journey with the support of my son to adopt a truly healthy lifestyle.
So join us as we discuss the factors that play into health from an easily digestible layman's perspective. All things from habits and mindsets to nutrition and exercise. And with that, let's get started. One of the things that I think would be great to build on top of as we've talked about these things is how inspiration and motivation come together toward those larger goals. Because we've kind of used those terms a little interchangeably throughout this conversation, but it's something that I've been thinking about, and I think parsing out the role of inspiration and the different types of motivation could actually be a great next step in helping you have more autonomy in the narrative that you're writing for your life. So I've been thinking about inspiration more in terms of the ideal or value that we want to work toward. You can think of it, as I and I. Inspiration is the ideal. So this is maybe the vision of something greater that you want in your life. You can think of it as your why statement. Why am I doing this? Why am I interested in lifestyle change? The internal value piece itself. But then I think motivation is a little bit more action-oriented, where it takes that ideal and it puts it into motion, which again, maybe we can think of motivation and movement as linked that way. And it's interesting from a neurological perspective. Motivation has everything to do with dopamine and some of the neural circuits that have to do with drive. If any of our listeners are interested in a deep dive on that, the Huberman Lab podcast is a fantastic resource. But rather than go into the weeds of science, which I'm not wholly equipped to do in this episode, I think it would be cool to differentiate between two main modes of motivation that I've felt in my own life. And the first of that would be negative motivation. And this is where we are driven toward action in order to avoid something that's negative in our life. So maybe that's wanting to avoid a punishment, which is like maybe that's a big reason why I did my homework growing up, is I don't want to get scolded. Or it might be because we don't want to incur some injury or sickness. Honestly, negative motivation can be a very powerful impetus for change because of our desire to just preserve our well-being. But I find that from a long-term perspective, negative motivation can feel less sustainable because it leads us to be driven from a place of fear in some sense. For example, in my personal art practice, I was often driven to create new art pieces because I didn't want to experience the negative feeling of falling behind in my craft, comparing myself to my art peers, and so on. And so, yeah, it was a powerful motivation to get me back to the drawing board in a literal sense, but I was always battling this sense of striving, and it always made me feel guilty for resting and so on. So you flip that with the other type of motivation, which is positive motivation. And this is where we're actively seeking out something because we know the reward will be enjoyable. And I think this is something that we can experience, especially in lifestyle change, because you might actively feel better in your body, both from a physical standpoint and from a mental standpoint, as we've talked about. So I like to sometimes reflect on where I'm trying to make changes in my life and what form of motivation I'm using, because sometimes negative motivation can get me moving for the first time. but I don't want to be always motivated negatively because, again, I don't want to always be driven from a place of fear. So, in terms of your own walk in exploring these new lifestyle changes, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on, have there been any negative motivations? Have you been driven toward lifestyle change to avoid some health detriment? Also, on the flip side of that, are there things that you're experiencing that have been positive motivating factors of like, oh, this feels good, I want to keep going?
Well, negatively, I think I've touched on that, is the fear of the consequences of continuing the previous lifestyle, of eating anything and everything that I wanted whenever I wanted to, and exercising every once in a while just because, well, I know I should. And that was leading me to the path of coronary heart disease and all of the associated bad health issues that come along with that.
Mm,
So that's the negative motivation. The positive motivation is the health benefits of the plant-based lifestyle, the weight loss, the motivation of when I get on the scale, I weigh less, the motivation that my clothes are fitting better. So I take motivation from the fact that I can see progress as I move along. Negatively, I think I touched on that on the last topic we had
mhm,
of the self-image. That is another motivator, that I want to eliminate the poor self-image that I have had of myself in the past. The motivating factor being I am improving my self-image, and hopefully not that it matters because I feel that I've had the proper coaching on it, that it doesn't really matter what other people think if they're thinking anything at all.
mm, mhm.
So I have to take it as I'm owning it for myself and my family.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing this for. That's the positive motivation. You spoke about inspiration, and inspiration being yet more of another level of motivation. You can get external inspiration as well as internal
Mm,
inspiration. I
sure.
think internal inspiration comes from the improved self image and the improved self talk, and the successes as a result of being motivated to achieve something. The inspiration also comes from my family
Mm,
and their encouragement. Yes, we can see this happening. Thank you for doing this for your health. The love of family that is inspiring me
mm,
to go through this journey, and knowing that people are really, truly concerned and wanting me to achieve. When we see things like this on television, like The Biggest Loser TV show, or
right.
some of these other shows where people actually overcome some sort of obstacle to achieve something and have success, others identify by that.
Yeah.
And what they're saying, and I'm saying this too, is that if I can do it, you can do it too. And that's motivating to me, is that I could possibly inspire someone to achieve for themselves whatever it is they want to achieve, but primarily a healthy lifestyle. Then I feel that this is part of the journey too. We wanted to share this, that other people can benefit from this lifestyle. They're going on the journey with us to put this to the test.
Yeah.
If it's for you, great. Hopefully we can give you some motivation and some inspiration along the way, of from a first-hand experience standpoint, to say this worked for me, this might work for you. Here's the results. Take them as what they are at face value and start something for yourself. And it's not that I would ever know that anybody was inspired or had success by what it is we're doing through this podcast, but it's the fact that we just put it out there,
Yeah.
and hopefully someone will benefit from it. The results are theirs, and hopefully they will have results and a better lifestyle because of that. And just knowing that someone might have been helped a little bit along the way, that inspires me and makes me want to do this. The other portion of it is it's making me accountable, not
Mm,
only
mhm,
to myself, but to these people who are listening and saying, hey, you let me down. And I feel responsible for that.
mhm,
That if I'm going to put myself out here and expect people to listen to me, I feel responsible not to let them down,
mm,
to go through with my journey,
yeah.
to achieve this lifestyle, because it's not fair of me to put myself out there and then to say, well, it was too tough. I quit. And someone who may have been listening was cheering for me, rooting for me, and especially my family now, who says, there you go again. I knew you couldn't do it. I'm to the point now where I can't live with myself if I don't do this.
I am.
I am so determined to make this work. And I don't want to let my family down. And I don't want to let anybody down who is listening to this. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast, is to make myself accountable to so many people that I couldn't fail, because at that point I would just feel so disgraced, because I would have reverted back to the person that I've always been, and I can't let that happen. That's the reason why all this is happening. The only way I feel I can do it is to publicly make myself vulnerable and and be accountable to so many people that if I fail, then I've disgraced myself and potentially other people who believed in me too. And people have so few things to believe in these days. And people need inspiration wherever they can get it of other people that succeed. And that's what gives other people hope. If you can't find the hope within yourself, look for it somewhere, to someone who, or something that inspires you and something that motivates you to the point to where you are going to do it no matter what. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter if you get off a rail somewhere, get back on. Find someone who knows you and loves you and you can trust to hold you personally accountable to yourself and to them, and to lovingly pull you back in and help you through this. You don't have to do it alone. Get the resource you need, no matter what it is you're trying to do. Whatever self-improvement thing or anything you want to achieve in life, find someone who can help you and go through it together. I've always tried to do it alone. I've had support, but this is completely different. I have so much help and support. That's what is going to get me through this, is the help and support and the accountability to everybody who listens to this.
That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. What you just shared resonates so deeply with people, because especially when it comes to health problems, it feels like not only like talking about literal weight, but there's this real mental, emotional weight that is the heaviest part of it all, that I think people just feel like they have to muster through. And what you are sharing, I think will show people is like, no, that there is a way to combat this. And what I love about what you shared is how you are finding such potent inspiration through your family, through that encouragement. And I think the reason for that is because we are wanting to echo to you just how valuable you are, just how much worth you have. People need other people in their lives to reflect how valuable they are. And I think when we don't have that, when we don't have a support system, when we don't have an accountability partner or community, as you said, it feels like, well, it's all on me to try and believe in myself, but we all stumble. We all have our down points. I just want to affirm what you said, that for any of our listeners who may not be blessed as we are to have a family support, who may not feel that they have those in their life that they can be accountable to, we want to put this podcast out as a way of reaching and supporting you guys as well. because just as we're trying to work through this together, we understand that not everyone has the support system that they need. So if we can be a resource and an encouragement to you guys in whatever you're walking through, especially as it relates to lifestyle and health stuff, we're not experts. We're certainly not doctors, but we understand, at least in our own context, what it's like to struggle. I think it's just incredible how you are choosing to write this new chapter for yourself and also wanting so ardently for it to have a ripple impact onto other people.
Part of it is that whatever it is I'm taking, I'm also going to give. And if I'm getting inspiration from others, I'd like to give inspiration to others.
Right.
People always ask other people who are successful, what is the magic of your success? And if I thought of that question for myself, what I would like the answer to be is effort and consistency.
Hmm.
And that's what I see being the motivational factors for me during this journey, too. To name a couple would be consistent effort, and consistency. That in order to achieve this, I have to put the effort in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be consistent, day in, day out. Maybe I'll miss a day on something here or miss a day on something there. Maybe some days I'll walk. Maybe some days I'll not walk. But as long as I'm consistent on getting a walk in every other day or doing some sort of workout every other day, as long as I put the effort in to eat the right foods every day, that's consistent effort. I've achieved that.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing, what else do I need to do as consistent effort? And I know that's what my success is going to be built on, as well as the other foundational elements that I'm putting in place from my family's inspiration, motivation, and encouragement, is going to be consistent effort. Whatever it is, even if it's a little effort, be consistent. If it's a lot of effort, be consistent with that. And I think what's going to happen, and I've seen it happen already, it's compounding interest.
Mm-hmm.
It grows exponentially. It grows on itself. And I think, and I hope that our listeners will find that as well, that when you put effort in and you start seeing some success from that, that it's actually compounded interest, that you will be more motivated, more inspired to go further and achieve more because it keeps growing on itself. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm starting to see that happening now. Little by little, I'm getting more equity in my journey. I'm getting more assets that are compounding upon themselves as far as my improved health, which I've already noticed, that it's an investment in myself and that I will see compounded returns in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what you just stated reminds me of something a good friend of mine said, that what matters most is what you do most of the time. So that
Yes.
consistent effort, it's not about zero wiggle room. If I fall off once, I'm completely screwed. It's what matters most is what you do most of the time. And that's something I've had to remind myself of, as I previously shared dealing with binge eating, because that would be a mindset of like, oh, well, I fell off today. I might as well go on an entire binge because I ate just a little bit over the norm. But giving yourself that grace alongside consistent effort, I think, is a really powerful thing. And I know you just mentioned that you've already started to see some health benefits. So as we wrap this episode up, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share any progress that you've noticed. If that is related to numbers, awesome. Or if it's just related to how you feel, I wanted to ask what you've been noticing.
Sure, I'd be glad to share my latest progress. At my most recent weigh-in a few days ago, I'm down to 264.8 for a total weight loss of 23.7 pounds from my starting weight of 288. I know when we started the podcast, I was at 271, I believe, but I'm going from my starting weight from the time that I first discovered the coronary artery disease diagnosis, and I'm very pleased with that.
That's incredible.
So the date has been from January 14th to March 12th, a little less than 2 months. I've lost 23.7 pounds.
That's so good.
My BMI is now 38, if anybody cares about BMI. And again, these are just measurements.
Hmm.
This is indicative of my progress. The real progress is how I'm feeling mentally and physically, and the fact that I am improving my overall health and reducing my chances for further risk in the future. And that's the main goal of this. The weight numbers in a certain amount of time, that's just a measurement of progress. Will I hit my goal at a certain time? Maybe, maybe I won't. There's a lot of time and obstacles to face between then and now. But I have a support system and I have a plan to get there, and I'm going to stay on this track as I put it to the test.